There's a secret world just outside the hospital walls where clinicians trade stethoscopes for startups. If you've ever wondered how someone goes from seeing patients to building the future of healthcare, you're in the right place. I'm Kayla, a PA on a mission to figure out what comes next. When I started researching careers in health tech, I found confusing job titles and zero clarity on how clinicians actually made the transition. So I went straight to the source, the people who already did it. Each week, we demystify a specific career path by someone who's already living it, whether it's from the bedside to the boardroom, the startup, or something completely different. Whether you're planning your exit, passively curious, or already working in health tech, this is your insider's guide. Welcome to corporate espionage. Okay, today I'm thrilled to introduce Jasmine Bonder, who is a nurse practitioner turned founder. Jasmine didn't make a clean pivot. She layered her career moves on top of one another. In 2021 alone, she started practicing as an NP, teaching pharmacology at UT Health San Antonio, and joined a ketamine therapy clinic. She then moved into clinical operations as head of clinical care at Adely, became an angel investor, and now runs Clinova Solutions, where she's solving a B2B problem that most tech companies don't even realize is killing their growth. Welcome, Jasmine. I'm really excited to dig in to your startup and healthcare experience and talk more about your journey.
Yay. First of all, thank you so much for having me and happy Thursday.
Yes, happy Thursday. Okay, so you started your nursing career working at the Cleveland Clinic, correct?
A little bit before that, I was working in the emergency room, first at a university hospital, which is a hospital right across the street from the clinic. Did that for a couple years. If you've worked in the ER, you always have like love for the ER. It's just a special type of chaos. Eventually, like went back to school, did some a master's in health management, and then flipped over to the Cleveland Clinic. Did assistant nurse manager, did vascular surgery, did heart and lung transplants, and like really enjoyed my time understanding like how the day-to-day operates on the floor. It's just like such a different exposure that you're like, oh wow, now I know why my staff is stressed or the nurse managers are stressed, like all the drama that goes behind the scenes.
Of course.
And then like also like had the privilege, like I always say, like I really did have a privileged clinical years that when I was practicing like in hospital or in clinic practices, because I also had the opportunity to work for the NFL. I was the nurse for the Browns. They had a contract with the hospital. So I had like the cool
No
opportunity to
way.
just do sports medicine and like see what that world, yeah, which is so cool. If you ever get the opportunity, highly, highly suggest. It's a different type of medicine. You take care of the fans more than you take care of the patients, and the fans are really
Sure.
rough, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Wow, that's so fun. So even in your early career, you were already building a crazy like portfolio career for yourself.
Oh, totally. I like just had this mindset, like try everything,
Yeah.
because like we are like in healthcare just so bred to think hospital centric mindset. Like you're just gonna get funneled in like a sardine to the hospital. And I was like, poke, like what do they do over there? Poke, what do they do over there? Like I'll hustle for
Yes.
money everywhere. And that's where like starting off as an ER nurse like has helped me in so many components in my life. And like working with the NFL, like the fans, they're drunk, they're on drugs, people aren't taking their meds, they're eating a lot of sugar, they're eating a lot of salt. Like that's what I dealt with in the ER. What's different? I just don't have my supplies.
Right.
So those hands-on skill sets I've just been able to take from doing that, working at bedside, doing sports medicine. And then I had like the privilege of being on the board of trustees for my university. And I was like, oh my God, I like kind of practice as an ER nurse, but from like a different type of lens of talking about risk and strategy. So yeah, I did a bunch of there and then eventually did the academic route.
Wow. All right,
Yeah.
so you are a little bit drawn to a chaotic environment where you have the opportunity to ground yourself and be like, okay, this is how we're going to handle the situation. This is what we're going to do here. You do this, you do that. Let's like dive right in. Sounds like that is your MO.
Yeah, day of 30 million, like however old I am.
Right.
Like it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
hasn't changed. It hasn't changed.
What drew you to healthcare in the first place?
It's such a hard question. So I started off like I graduated high school when I was really young. I graduated when I was like 16. So I was a nurse by the time I was 19. And so
Wow.
my mom was like, my parents are foreign. They came from like third world countries. So they were very much like, you need to get a job that has security.
Yeah.
Nursing was a great field. You could work 3 days, you could still have everything else you want, whether you had time off or a family or partner, whatever you decided to do, you kind of had that balance. And that's all my parents knew as like, that's the career. So it kind of pivoted me into that space. But I also knew I'm drawn to serving people and caring for others, and, like, I get a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment being to make somebody else's day better. So kind of they told me to do it, but I kinda liked it, so it was a little bit
Yeah.
of both. But starting off so young, I came from this, like, very secure environment, strapped in an inner city tertiary hospital in the ER. I'm like, "Where am I?"
Yes.
But then you got, like, such acute exposure to, like, the rest of the world and, like, what other people go through and, like, what other 19-year-old girls were going through that came from different spaces. So it was almost like a shell shock, but I needed to have that. I needed to get kind of exposed to the what troubles that were going on that I just never got exposure to, you know?
Some serious life learning getting thrown
Totally.
into that environment. Yeah.
I
I think
remember when I
that's
saw my first, like, person that passed, I remember being like, "This really
yeah.
happens." Like, "This
Yeah.
really happens." Like, I was
Yeah.
19 being like, "Oh my god." Like, it's just
Yes.
different.
Healthcare has a very unique way of showing you the real world, through
Totally.
a lens that a lot of lay people don't have the I consider it a privilege to experience.
Totally. Totally. I mean, like, think about it, like, what other space or discipline sees people on their worst day?
Yeah.
And, like, have to fix all of it, like, Band-Aid as much as you can over, like,
Yep.
psychosocial needs, mental needs, physical needs, and whatever else, like, financial well-being, whatever it is, like, just tons of stuff in one setting. Like, you won't ever see that, like, microcosm anywhere else but healthcare.
Nope. Nope. I could have honestly, a TED Talk about that fact and how it sets us apart
Mhm.
from the rest of the world and like lay people who aren't in healthcare in general. How that changes our views of the world, how that changes
Totally.
how we, interact with family and relationships and friendships. And I could go on for that. I've thought about this a lot. And it's actually one of my
Mhm.
favorite things about having worked in healthcare for so long.
Totally. And I think that, like, it grows us all up in a certain way to have so much empathy, but then
Yeah.
also see so many angles. So even if it's like another person that is another comes to you with a problem, you can see like, oh, they have XYZ going on. Like there's just so much more going on that they just see maybe one thing, but you can see
Yep.
10.
Yep.
And that's a superpower. Like totally a superpower.
Absolutely. So how did that, broad view lead you into becoming a nurse practitioner and pursuing more non-clinical opportunities or academic opportunities as well?
Yeah, great question. So I remember kind of like I ICU nurse practitioner. Here's COVID. I did trauma surgical ICU as my training, but then during COVID, everyone became a NICU nurse, a nurse
Absolutely.
practitioner, and then my partner is an emergency room physician, and so I always him and I always had this draw to like critical care, detail orientation, high intense situations. Like it's just something that we both have grown to love, right? But COVID was a hard time. Like anybody in health, directly or ancillary to healthcare, I mean, probably the whole world really got shooken up. But I think we kind of lost the advocacy for quality of life for clinicians who were living it, dealing with it, that paid my bills, and then coming home. And I had a partner in healthcare. And so I'm like, we both came home just like burnt out.
Yep.
Um, and I remember kind of one of my last shifts, I'm sitting in the ICU. I've got 19 vents, I've got balloon pumps, I've got, 3 codes coming through the door. There's like 4 of us, short staffed, on a huge unit. And all I can hear is like noise everywhere. It's like boop, 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 boop. The vent's going up, ding, ding, ding. A call light's going up, da, da, da. Our air art line is going off. And then people constantly interrupting. And I remember being like, I'm on stimulation overload. Like we've had a horrible shift. I'm not sleeping. It's going to take me an hour just to get through a sign off. And I just felt like everything was so strict. Like I could feel my body just feeling like tight. It was just like not a way to live. And I think we all were feeling it in our own ways. And I remember I kept thinking like we just do things out of like like, we're not even thinking. We just go through motions. Like, you just become so zombie-like after a while, especially in these
Yeah,
high intense environments, that, like, I was just not happy. And I just felt like I don't get to be me. I'm not this creative person. I lost this innovation. I can't change what I do because, like, everything we do is so strict in the hospital that I realized, like, I need to have that outlet or I won't be able to be happy. And then, like, I would think I was seeing it, like, I was thinking it, but then seeing it through my husband, I was like, "Oh my god, like, you're miserable, and I'm miserable, and this is just no way for us to live our lives," right? And I have a lot of empathy. The world was, like, going through just a horrific situation, but
absolutely.
we didn't know how to cope with it, and we didn't
Yeah,
get, like, therapy through it either, you know? We were just
right.
like, "Okay, time adapt, time adapt, time adapt, time adapt. Let's just keep going," you know? And so I think we all come to healthcare to serve, and like that's all of our leadership skills. But I think because the lack of creativity we don't have in our jobs is the reason why a lot of us pivoted out to find non-traditional roles, right? We wanted to have these outlets where we could think and be inspired and innovate and like use our skill sets into different ways than just bedside medicine. So I started off like academic route. I thought, you know, this may be a good way to like teach the next generation. You know, I did publish papers, I did some grant writing, like I enjoyed it for a period. But then I still felt like this bureaucracy of a system, like we're still kind of going through the mundane in its own way. And so I didn't get as much inspiration as I need. And so that is kind of what was like that hallmark, oh my God moment. Like I need to find something that really is like eye-opening. And this ketamine clinic fell on me. I met this amazing ER doctor, like through passing in life. And he was like, "Hey, I'm starting like a practice. I want to do ketamine therapy for soldiers who have suffered from PTSD. This is pretty novel." I mean, this was back in like 21, I think.
Mhm,
There's no published papers on this. I'm like, "What are
mhm.
you doing?" Like, I've only used ketamine in one certain way. And then he was just telling me so much about like psychedelic medicine. And I was like, I'm very open minded. I've heard about this in the Eastern Hemisphere. Like, tell me more, right? And he was like, just see one soldier, just see one person, like come with me, shadow me, and like tell me what you think. And I had a lot of trust. His name was Carl. He's
Yeah,
absolutely amazing. And I watched literally a soldier come in with like active SI, not doing well, has been maintaining such trauma in his life, or like a veteran, I should say. And then afterwards, like, thank you for giving me like 10 minutes of peace in my mind. He's like, I've never had that. And I only get this from this experience. Like everything shut off. And it was just so nice to breathe for once. And I'm like, oh my God, like 40 milligrams of ketamine did that to you? Like you deserve more. Like you deserve to have a life of peace. And so they built like this protocol that like every couple of weeks they would come and they would get therapy associated and they could start opening up these walls. I'm like, this is just so innovative.
yeah.
And it went from one clinic and then I started working with a team and we went to 8 clinics and we scaled into different states and then we started getting insurance to cover it. And so here I am just starting as a nurse practitioner to help to all of a sudden this like ops leader to help build this community for patients who are suffering. And it was like that light bulb moment. It was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, you can take what we're doing, change the momentum of it, and as long as you're practicing safe and in respectful manner of medicine, like you have a little bit more free range. So yeah, that was kind of my first leap into the startup space.
And it sounds like that really satisfied your creative itch as well as the, like, healthcare, empathetic, I'm here in service of others itch.
Totally, and I think, like, I think all of us will always straddle both of those lines, like, I still wanna be able
Yeah.
to give and serve in that way, but I also wanna have other things going on. I don't wanna just be pigeonholed into one corner. But then, you know, really, Kayla, what I realized, I'm like, I don't know a lot about business. Like, no one really taught me about entrepreneurship. Like, yeah, I was a nurse manager. Like, yeah, I took some business classes in my undergrad, but I don't know really what is the economic structures. I don't know marketing. What about like legal things? Like, what is an MSOPC setup? Who needs to be doing this stuff? And so I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go to an angel investing group. Like they deal with this all day long.
Okay.
And that was like, holy moly, I know nothing. Like,
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
was put me in the back seat, and so for, like, 1 year, all I did was, like it was like a fee to go to Al I think it's on my line, but I went to Alamo Angels, it was a fee to go, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna join this group, and I'm just gonna sit and listen," and I was just, like, astonished of, like, these caliber humans that come from different disciplines who are, like, an a a company would come through, a startup would be talking, and it's about manufacturing, and the questions they would ask and the answers, and they articulated how they dissected. It's the same way we do in medicine, but it's in their own little world, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm like, yes, like go them. Like that is exactly what I need to know about manufacturing or immigration or SaaS
Yeah.
models or whatever was coming through the door. And I just learned an incredible amount to prepare myself to when I really leaped into like startup world.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you really just approached this, investing group and was like, "Hey, can I just be a member? Can I join?"
Yeah, I like I know nothing, but I wanna know more, really. So because where San Antonio is located, the ecosystems that come, the typical startup ecosystem is climate change, military, so cybersecurity, military things, and manufacturing because they're so close to the border of Latin America. So
Yeah.
trade happens a lot through San Antonio onward to El Paso or other aspect areas that around the border. So really no healthcare, like minimal healthcare comes through the door. I'm
Okay.
still involved. So it was, like, just eye-opening on how they're doing it, but one thing I'll tell you that you learn so much how to do things differently. Like, I, like, think of manufacturing, I'm like, "Why don't we think like manufacturing, like, in the hospital setting and, like, how they divvy out supplies to the different rooms or how we look at a workforce?" Or, like, okay, there's SaaS models, like, why aren't some of these SaaS models for marketplace entering healthcare and using similar modalities into the way we practice? So it was, like, such a paradigm to see those worlds and being like, "Wow, we should be doing this in this world," you know?
Yes. So were you able to apply the lessons that you learned there to the ketamine clinic?
Yes and no. I feel like in some ways I think working kind of going head on straight to the ketamine clinic, I learned by mistake. And then
Sure.
in when I started joining Animal Angels, I learned about why it was a mistake and like what was the reason, like what was my naive or almost like immature thoughts of like acting on impulse versus like
Yeah.
strategically thinking. I can now answer and define that. So it was kind of like that. I saw it, now I learned about it, now I know what to do and what not to
Yeah.
do, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you were building and scaling the ketamine clinic, were you using any resources to plan your moves? Were you, going on YouTube University? Were you using a textbook? Were you talking to people, networking? Were you, like how were you acquiring enough information, enough education to make decisions?
Yeah, mentors. Like, I
Yeah.
cannot stress enough how important it is to have like a collection of mentors that you truly trust to be very vulnerable with and being like, I have no idea what I'm doing. What would you do in this space or what would you not do? And I have like mentors that have been in my life since I was 18 years old that have still like they come and break bread at my home whenever they're in Austin.
Yes.
And they are like family to me, and so I think having those mentors really put me in bumper cars, like, I knew if I was leaning too right, they'd be like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 like, you gotta learn, but you are gonna stay in this field," so I'm just blessed to have them, and, like, I'm so grateful that they're still in my life.
Are they business people, healthcare people?
So my first one is a lawyer. She is a
Okay.
nurse turned med mal lawyer.
Wow.
It's so interesting, right? But so she looks at things. Her name is Kimberly Cleveland. I love her to death. She looks at everything from very strategically, because like the law doesn't change as fast as tech does. And so like that's where we I know this is where I know hot topic now, but like this is where the
Right.
world really falls through. And so she's like, you can do that, but then these are the consequences that you may have. And she used to be like the CNO out in Suma, like a hospital out in Cleveland. And so she had this hospital set mindset, but always leaned on it legally. So she very much taught me like, okay, like here are parameters. You can bounce in the parameters and you can interpret a certain way. But once you break those parameters, like there are major consequences.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and it's like was great to have that as like kind of I felt like I had somebody always looking out for me in the best of intentions, especially in
Yep.
startup.
Yeah, and especially something like ketamine clinic where,
Totally.
the evidence isn't necessarily established at that time. It's not
Totally.
federally approved, federally
Totally.
regulated.
Totally.
Yeah, that's huge. Wow. So that was a busy year for you.
Yeah, busy couple years. Loved it. I'm still involved. I end up in that was my first investment as an angel investor. I realized like just so much passion there. But then I realized like I wanted more growth. I wanted to see what more was out there. And I was working still in person. So I'm like, okay, what remote job is out there for a gal like me in my
Right,
career, you know?
right,
And then I end up going over the next really like non-clinical job I had, where I wasn't practicing and I was just more oversight, was working at Italy. And I thought this was just like the most novelist thing because it was looking at a workforce that was not paid. So specifically family caregivers. And it's like a huge crisis. There's like over 10 million plus family caregivers in the United States, and they're essentially doing everything that a home health aide is doing, but not getting paid for it. And there became this like ethics conversation, like, should family members get paid? Is this a conflict of interest for them to do
right.
this bedside care work? But I would like before I even started the job, I was like talking to some of the family caregivers and they're like, I drive dad to the store, I get him food, I wash him daily, I have to call off of work if he's sick, I have other kids, I don't get paid. And I'm like, oh my God, you are doing a job. You're doing hell yeah, you are doing a job. And they could get paid for it. And it's like completely legal. Like
Yep,
nothing in the Bible or in our policies, the Bible, Medicaid, nothing in Medicaid said nothing said that they couldn't get paid for it. And so I felt like, "Oh my god, what an advocacy for financial well-being." If you don't have a good financial well-being, everything else will trickle, right? And this is amazing CEO, Maggie, her name is Maggie Norris. She was a family caregiver. That was her inspiring story. And she's like, I took care of my dad who was dying. I had to stop my whole life for this. And I got no money. I did not get paid for this. And it stunted me for 4 years as I'm doing like what I want to do, which is help my dad. And so that type of like moment was like, oh my God, like what a novel way to look at a workforce, like,
yeah,
and find an opportunity that is impacting America and is still impacting America. So I did a lot of oversight because it's structured as a home health, non ADL home health. So like a lot of oversight administratively, some minimal clinically, but mostly administratively. And it was
okay.
just it's a way to look at things novelly. Most like is what I took. Like look at a problem and like 10,000 perspective view on this, you know?
Sure. So in that role, you were functioning as an operations lead?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, mostly operation administration, so, like, making sure compliance was met and, like, a home health and, like, they were in about 5 states, so, like, overseeing compliance for 5 states, making sure we're meeting state regulations for both Medicaid,
yep,
Medicare, home health, and then what does a day-to-day look like for home health and making sure they're clocking in and they have to be in certain geographics. I mean, there's all these contingencies they have to meet to actually get paid.
yeah. Okay, so one thing that I really love to do on this podcast is try and take as much fluff out of a non-clinical title that we possibly can and
Okay,
explain it in almost like lay people terms. Because our listeners are
okay,
clinical and they are, potentially thinking about making a jump to a non-clinical role. And in my humble opinion, I will say I think that it is the correct opinion. A lot of job descriptions are extremely nebulous,
totally.
extremely vague, and are really difficult to truly understand. So,
Okay.
can you, in your best possible way, explain what an operator does, and even go deeper into this role? So you mentioned compliance, you mentioned like
Okay.
regulatory, you mentioned some terms that I want to challenge you to break down even further and like really get to the nuts and bolts of what that means.
Yeah, top of mind, I'm a micro human manager. I'm micromanager for humans. Like, yeah, like I don't want to say border control, but boundary control.
Okay.
um, yeah, I would say like really boundary control and day-to-day micro human management for tasks. It's what it feels like being an
Tasks that
operator.
other people are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, tasks
Okay.
that other people doing. For some reason, the word mother came up, but I don't know if that's just because 'cause I'm pregnant and have kids, but also very motherly.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of like keeping a watchful eye on everything.
Yeah.
Are you setting processes into motion? Or are you just saying, okay, these things are already in motion. Let's make sure that they're running smoothly?
A little bit of both because there's a lot of prevention with this. It's kind of like, okay, like the frequency of a negative or something that isn't going right, like recognizing that steep hill happening and being like, okay, we need to nip this ASAP. And so whatever that like little pivot that you got to do, whether it's small or very large, they tend to be
Yep,
large. Like, what does that mean, and how does that impact the team around you? And ultimately what's going to come to fruition, who's going to prosper, and what's the negative outlook, because even a pivot will have some type of riff or friction point that happens.
sure.
um and then getting buy-in from that, I think, is also part of the job. Is like you're ultimately serving a certain person, you're ultimately serving a certain person. You got to get buy-in from the purpose, the people, and the teammates, because if you don't, that nobody will come along for the ride. And yeah, that's super tough. That's super tough for the job.
Did you find that your clinical background helped you with getting buy-in?
Yeah, you know what I used to do? My little, like, cheat sheet is, like,
Yeah.
how I do soap notes. Here's the situation. Here are my objective findings. This is what I assess, and this is the plan moving forward.
Wow.
Brought it all back. But that usually, that's why we do it. There is science to our soap notes. And so if you handle it in those ways, like as silly as it sounds, it actually gives people a very big context as to why you made those executive decisions.
Absolutely. Okay. Wow, well, you're doing a great job of, like, transferable skills explaining. I think I have a much better, grasp just from your explanation of operator role. So you're at Italy for how long?
About a year and a half. About a little bit, yeah, more than a year and a half. I What I wasn't doing is practicing as an NP, and that just kinda did.
Yeah.
After a year, I'm like, "I worked so hard for this license and this skill set," and so I felt like I needed an opportunity there. And so there's, like, this gray space in my resume that I was bouncing around different startups, and I know one of the questions you're gonna have for me is, "What did I learn along the way?" This is when Jasmine learned a very valuable lesson.
Tell us. Tell
And
us.
here's the tea, like, cheers, here's the hot tea. I know, cheers, Kayla. Um, like, there are a lot of startups, especially once you start entering the space, that'll find you very attractive. Your clinical sets, the ecosystem that you've built, the knowledge that you've gained, the amount of licensures, like I'm licensed in 50 states, like it becomes
Mhm.
very attractive to startups, right? But then you realize that a lot of people either don't know much about healthcare or don't respect it. Okay. And so I was one of the companies that I was interviewing and did a little bit of work for was in a biotech space. And I thought, okay, super interesting. I've never done biotech before. And I remember on my interview, they were asking me questions about allergies, infectious disease. And I was just like, okay, this is kind of interesting. I've never seen those two worlds straddle together, but I guess that makes a lot of sense that they could be, right? And really dancing around what they were doing. And I couldn't catch on to it. I was like almost naive. I'm like, okay, biotech, they were offering me a really great offer. I got to do clinical innovation. Like I was like, oh my God, this is very, very interesting to me. And I would be straddling like this research and clinical ops role and it kind of all my skill sets I've done in the past. And I remember being like, "Okay, so, like, what are we doing?" And, like, no one would really tell me, but I was like, "Okay, allergies, infectious disease," like, I feel pretty confident in this space. And so then eventually they were telling me like, eventually it came out what they were doing, and I can't disclose, but it was
Sure.
nothing in the science books. It's nothing that, like, my 5 siblings are all in medicine knew about, like, nobody knew what they were doing. Like, it was a disease that no one's ever heard about. I'm like, okay, like maybe we're going the FDA route and doing like research on this. And like maybe I'm just like clinical oversight for a research trial. And slowly, slowly, as I was piecing the layer, this was like week 4 or 5 of me working there. They were just like blindly doing human experiments without FDA control or FDA oversight. Like it was wild. And the other clinicians were there actually didn't have a license. They actually got it stripped by the board of medicine. I know. And nobody disclosed this to me at all. And it was my
And the
research.
company is still functioning. Well,
The
at that time.
company is, yeah, it's still functioning and actively still functioning, and it, like, just
Whoa.
dawned on me and raised a ton of capital. It dawned on me, like, the reason why we practice the scientific method is because nobody gets hurt. They have done enough control studies to make sure everybody knows the pros and cons of doing whatever disease you're treating. But in different spaces in medicine, they don't practice the same. And so, like, when you start talking about the wellness space, the functional space, there it's kind of a free for all.
Yep.
Um, And that's like my learned lesson. Like, check who you're getting interviewed by. Like, if something doesn't seem right, if it's a disease you've never heard about or a treatment plan you've never heard about, there's nothing out there. And like some of the meds that were being prescribed, I'm like, what the hell are you shoving
Yeah.
up where? Like,
Yeah.
it was like every fiber of my being said there is something wrong. And it wasn't until like people in my community was like, you need to see like what's going on, that I was like, oh my God, within like 2 months I was out of there. Yeah, so hard learned lesson. Company is still around, but then I feel better knowing I'm so not involved with that, you know?
Sounds like a Thanos situation.
I wish I could say. I really wish I could say. But like learn lesson here. Like if it doesn't sit right, like don't
Yeah.
do it. Like if it's not in a science evidence book or there's one PubMed article out there, do not do it. Like
Yep.
don't be the first one to experiment. And if you are, we have the FDA. Like
Sure.
go through normal channels. Like then nobody gets hurt and you keep your license safe. Because ultimately, if someone comes after, it's the people who are prescribing. It's not the company, or
Absolutely.
maybe a little bit both. So yeah, hard learned lesson.
That is crazy. Was that the only sort of shady situation that you found yourself in?
No, no, I think in the startup world you see a lot. And
Yeah.
like that's like why I like going back from like my earlier years of having a mentor in law and being like I would there was this one company I interviewed for who was like, you're gonna prescribe our DME. And I was like, that's kickback. You cannot prescribe your own internal DMEs. Like you can't
Right.
do that. And they would be like, "Well, we're gonna find a way to work around it." I'm like, "There's no working around it, like, and not on my license." So next, right? And then one of them was like, "Oh, you're gonna do referrals for people." I'm like, "Okay, well, what type of referrals? Like care coordination referrals? Are you another version of kickback?" I mean, like, it was like constantly me being challenging their like legal efficacy, but then I realized they just don't know healthcare. Like, it's not that easy. You can't just
Right.
walk in and just do whatever you want. It's not a free for
Right.
all. So yeah, hard learned lesson. So when you're interviewing through startups, like really like take them down to the basics. Like what are you doing and why are you doing it, you know?
That is such good advice. I think it also is really great to remember to trust that clinical conscience,
Totally.
and to really trust those like moments of gestalt where you already know what's happening, and believe them, at least entertain them and like
Yeah,
investigate further when those things come up, and to not compromise your values for a shiny object. Because
totally.
it can be really easy to be like, "Oh, no, well, it's so great." Just like you said, they're paying me really well, it seems legit, like, this company's, still operating to this day, but then really when you're peeking behind the curtains, you would obviously be compromising your values and your integrity as a clinician, to
Totally.
continue to work with them. Yeah.
Totally. Like I never thought I was ever going to use my doctorate till that moment when I'm like, you don't have any randomized
Sure.
control studies. That's a meta-analysis that compare like those words I never thought
Yes.
would come out of my mouth. And they did. And I'm like, "Ugh, now my doctorate
Wow.
made sense."
Oh my gosh. Crazy, crazy. That is some hot tea. Thank you, Jasmine. Such a
Cheers.
great reminder. Okay, so we had some stumbles along the way. We left Italy, and is this when Clinova started to take shape?
Yeah, so Clinova started this August 2025. It dawned on me, like I think all these now that I say it out loud, it's like you can see all the connections forming in my brain. Like it dawned
Yes.
on
Yeah.
me that like the wellness space is moving in an interesting direction where it's direct to consumer, consumer initiated care, and really consumer left treatment too, because there's a lot of experimental and I would say misinformation that happens in this space. But in some ways, it's also grown opportunities for exploration for patients. Now, and in the healthcare route, we have a lot of we practice scientific method. We really want to make sure there is continuity of care, making sure we have evidences for really whatever we're doing. But the modalities of care have been super challenging, like getting to clinics, driving to the clinics, going to get a visit, doing a telehealth visit, make sure you have Zoom, Wi-Fi. I mean, like there's all these like challenges kind of still happening in healthcare. So like you've got this direct to consumer happening in wellness. You've got this like still maintaining the same modalities of care visits in healthcare. I'm like, well, why don't we learn some of the principles that wellness is doing that are allowed in the United States or like allowed legally? Each state is different, but in 46 states, you can practice asynchronously. And still, as long as it maintains the same value of a synchronous visit, you can still practice asynchronous. And some of it's actually now being reimbursed by insurance. I thought, like, this is super interesting, and started developing this product that really helped with asynchronous care and helping B2Bs that are interested in developing asynchronous care, how to do so and how to do so correctly so they follow all the components. So if they were to get in trouble, they can say, hey, it matches what our synchronous visits would look like. So that like little nugget started back in August and really started building the product around it to make sure we could fit the needs of the B2B demand and have already grown into 3 partnerships. So like huge news, but I'm thinking that we're seeing a larger demand for this asynchronous care to alleviate the burdens that providers are feeling.
Absolutely. So this is applied in the like 100% in the wellness industry or also in the like I don't want to say true clinical medicine because I think that, the wellness industry has a function in clinical medicine as well.
Totally.
But traditional medicine, let's call it.
Yeah, so mostly traditional medicine.
Okay.
Most of what I've noticed, like, just most of the wellness companies are extremely venture backed or have already been pretty established, or they have their own
Yeah.
type of processes that's like that, where they fill out a form and they get whatever the diagnostic or whatever the thing is. So in my view, it's more related to just traditional medicine that's looking for this asynchronous process. And like what etiologies are appropriate for that type of asynchronous process too is the other component.
Of course. I was going to ask, what are the main use cases that you're finding?
Yeah, so if you look at, like, your ESI scores, your emergency service index scores, dating back, like, back to my ER days, I know, it's a lot of the 4s and 5s because they're pretty algorithmic. They're pretty
Yep.
much answer 10 to 20 questions. If you go down a pipeline, it is very likely that this is the etiology at play. And you rule out any severe disease, you make sure that there isn't anything that's compromising or even high-risk patients, like someone who's coming in with extreme comorbidities, they're not appropriate for asynchronous care. But some of the lower level ESI scores or people that are low risk, the likeliness of a severe disease is very, very low, if not, if anything. So those are usually the appropriate use case. And I'm noticing more private clinics, especially private practices, like APPs that want to start their own private practice. It's a good way to start building
Yeah.
momentum and establishing care. And then, like at the end of the day, you do all your asynchronous visits. You can do them from home. So there's like this also provider buy-in that we've noticed.
Are you gunning for the like Doctronic automatic refill prescription refill function?
Yeah, that no, 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 no.
Because that feels similar.
I when they published, especially when I was reading what they were doing in Utah, I the I don't know what the future holds for what we are doing in regards to if we're going to start having this automated prescription, if there's going to be health space for this. Ultimately, once you get down that route, you are dabbling around medical decision making. And even though their parameters is just a refill, as long as it's continuum, you can't have a new prescription. I mean, I know that they have a lot of parameters around what they are doing. If it goes medical decision making, there's 2 big adjustments that have to happen. Number 1, you need to have an insurance policy to cover it, and what does that look like from, your PLS, like your, professional liability insurance and your medical malpractice, and 2, you have to have some either FDA approval or a state buy-in. So I think I'm gonna be very interested to see what the outcomes of Doctronic does before I, like, really lean into seeing if this is something in a direction I would go to. I like the idea of just being much more product based at this point because it's just much more scalable and I see a need and I see the demand. I don't know how much we're going to go into this complete automation of care.
Absolutely. The interesting thing is that apparently, I don't know if you heard, but Doctronic was able to get a malpractice insurance policy on the AI, like not on the providers, which I would love to. I would love to read the policy, not that it would
Yeah.
completely make sense to me, but like and compare it to, for example, my, malpractice policy and see like what is covered. I don't know. It just sounds so interesting to me. I would love to see like talk with the underwriter. Someone needs to interview the underwriter of that
Yeah.
policy.
Hear, hear. Yes, I want to hear it. Hear, hear. Really. No, I'm like, that is like really it's like a seed in my head constantly, like, peeking out when I read things about med mal going out, especially with AI.
Yeah.
I'm very curious as to what insurance company is covering, what they are covering. Like, is it incidental? Is it just the product itself? Like, what exactly is that policy saying? Because if there's still med mal on the licensure, then it's just somebody in the back end approving and not approving. But if they're approving, like, the total automation of it, that means that the AI is now taking medical malpractice, and I think that would be very, very novel. I don't know if it exists or doesn't, I just am not aware of it, but,
Right.
they may be the first, and honestly, I hope the team is. That would be really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's a story that I'm definitely following closely
Same.
because number one solves a very high like problem, solves a problem that we need a great solution for, and I think that if that solution works, it is fantastic.
Totally,
Within the parameters that it's meant for. Number two, so much novelty in all of the ethical questions, the legal questions, like we said, the malpractice questions, the like, does a patient really want to see a provider? What if they have a question? How do we handle that? And then the
totally,
edge cases of like when problems truly happen. I'm curious what their workflows look like.
totally, and we need pioneers, and they're definitely one of the leading
Yeah.
ones, and
Yeah.
I'm happy that they are doing it. Like, the first of anything is really hard, so the fact that they are doing it, the world will listen and learn, you know?
Yes. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to put the first step forward. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and
Doctronic, if you're listening, thank you.
yeah, thank you, we are watching.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk back to the early founder days with Clinova. How did you go about taking this idea and turning it into a product and a business?
Um, yeah, great question. I think like one of the things we've lacked in higher education towards providers is investing in yourself. Like, they don't teach you to invest in yourself, and investing not necessarily monetarily, like invest your time, invest your education, invest in your personality, like whatever it is, invest in yourself. And so I'm working at startups for a while. I've done the academic route, I've done the hospital centric mindset, I've like bounced around and I'm just like still not satisfied. And so I was like, well, why can't I do it? Like, what's holding me back? An educated person. Like, I've seen how things should and should not be done. I feel confident in my skill sets. I feel confident when not to do something. And I have great mentors around me. And most of the time when I like say that out loud, everyone's gonna be like, well, how did you have the money to do it? Like, that's always the follow up question. And I always said, like, I'm going to take time, like 5 years of my life, to be very risky and invest in myself. And I have a very
Hmm.
supportive partner who is also very supportive of me on the journey, but I want to take 5 years of risk. I'm not going to save. Like, there's a lot of things in my life that I've had to put on pause that I want to
Hmm.
invest in myself, take the risk, and see what I can do with it. At least I've tried. And I know at the end of 10 years from now, I'm be like, I'm so happy I did for whatever those reasons would be, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that mindset. I feel very similarly. Mine almost dances around like travel, like we talked about before.
Right. Right.
That emphasis of investing of yourself is a very broad term. It's actually something that was like one of my plugs on social media for a while. My handle used to be the investor PA, but I
Hell
framed
yeah.
it in terms of investing doesn't just mean financial. Like investing means what are all of the like spokes on the wheels of life that matter to you and how are you pouring into
Mhm.
them? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That's growth mindset though. And like that is I think what differentiates us from like going from bedside to like recognizing there's more out there than just the hospital or the
Yeah.
traditional clinics. There is so and your skill sets, you will never find anyone who can do your skill sets. I promise you. Like there's no marketer, operator, customer success. You tell me no one will be able to do what you do.
Of
Um
course.
and I wish higher ed plug that into our egos very young. And so we would feel more confident stepping out of the hospital centric mindset
Yeah.
and feel confident being like, I could do customer success. Why can't you? You do it every day in your job. You
Yep.
tell me you can't do risk, like you keep people alive. Like I trust you with risk, you know? That we don't get taught that, you know? So there's just like a gap in our confidence boosting and education, you know?
Yeah. Well, hope I think that this podcast serves as some of that boost for some people. which is one of my
Totally.
main goals of the podcast. So you decide to invest in yourself and take this risk and found a company. You file for an LLC. Then what?
Start saying that you're an entrepreneur. Like, I'm not a nurse practitioner. I am a nurse practitioner. It's one of the hats I have. I'm a nurse. I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm an operator. There's a lot of hats I've worn, right? I'm an angel investor. Like, let me make the list of things that are applicable. But once I started saying I'm an entrepreneur, like saying it, I believed it. It was in my soul. It's like my new hat. It's like getting a new degree, like
Sure.
yippee, part of the list. And so when I would go to people and they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. And there was just like all this intrigue. Well, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Because
Of
that's such a
course.
broad term. And I could always be like, I had the privilege of starting my career as a critical care nurse practitioner, realized some of the gaps and where I wanted to fill them, and use my skill sets and to be able to develop Clinova. And from there, I became a founder and now have branched out into being an investor and maintaining my part in my company and other things I want to do with it. And so just saying it made me like believe it even more. And then I
Yeah.
felt like I had like societal buy-in from it.
I completely agree. I think once you start owning that title and you start saying it enough and acting in the ways that make you
Yes.
slowly believe it, you become it.
Totally. And
Yeah.
it's so fascinating to see how your community around you will start to change. Like now a lot of my friends
Adjusting.
are
Yep.
yeah, like are investors. I'm in like 50 different Slack group. Like I didn't even know what Slack
Yeah.
was pre-21. Like now
Yes.
now I got every Slack in the America on my phone. That I like get invited to all these like localized events for founders and entrepreneurs and investors and like what's novel coming through the door, and it's like shifted my community, and I love it. I'm so much happier. I would never look back
Yeah.
like I'm just so happy. I'm so happy for what the future holds, and I'm so
Yeah.
happy for what I've learned from the past, like it's good moments.
Wow. It sounds like you're in a really, really great place. So Clinova is a product that helps businesses scale their asynchronous functions with lower acuity visits.
Right.
There's a product in here somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Are you technical?
A little bit. Like very like I love YouTube technically, you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. So, how did you find the people or the resources that you needed to build the product?
Yeah, this was an individual that I met like 4 years before I started who just kept in touch with me. And Darmy and I had like worked on a few projects like throughout my career with each other. Like we just kind of kept intersecting and based out of both Mumbai and New York, so like back and forth, has scaled other businesses. And I just like presented the idea, and I said, "Yo, like I know you're talented. I got a lot of dreams. Like this is what I want to do. Like how can we make this work?" But you never really realize, like, I have so much respect for software engineers and what they do because it's not just the front end, it's the back end. And they have just, especially if they're building in healthcare, like it's kind of a curse for them because they've got fire and TUFCA laws and HIPAA laws. I mean, like they just have as much shenanigans as we do, but they do it, cybersecurity issues and all the other issues that we have to worry about. And so there's a front end product end, there's a provider end, and then there's the administrative end. So you really have this tertiary level of product that has to be informed. So there's every person can be involved with it. And then it starts dabbling like, does this become an EMR system? Because that's what it very much sounds like. But EMR systems need all these certifications. So how can you avoid having these certifications while still maintaining a product that has this asynchronous care? And it's been super challenging, not gonna lie, to dance in this world of products. I felt like I'm learning every day through it. But when you have the right teammates that know those hard boundaries, like it's like it's a learned lesson or like a learned moment, right?
Yep.
And what's helpful is as a clinician, I can study my own provider behavior adjacent to the product. So if I were going to see a patient, how would I act with it? And if I was a patient, I'll just call my mom and say, "Hey mom, sign up and do this." How would
Yeah.
she act with it, right? And so you get this like tertiary view of like, okay, this is how a patient, this is how a provider, and then this is how an administrator would look at. And then I look back at my career, like I've been all those three people, you know? And so like you
Yes.
can leverage so much of what your skill sets are in building that product and then adjust before it actually hits hits marketplace. And so like that has been probably the fun part is like learning really about the product world, and they deal with just as much stress as we do as clinicians because a product goes down, it could literally hurt people. People could get sick, business goes down. I mean, a lot of things really do happen that leads to a lot of stress. So gain a lot
Yep.
of respect, but also have learned so much of what it takes to build a product in healthcare.
Wow. Um, what were any of the biggest challenges in communicating the needs for the product to someone who is non-clinical?
Yeah, kind of the whys, like why, like so much of our questions, our algorithms in our head build to make sure we're ruling out severe ailments, severe etiologies. Like, why do we do height and weight? Like, it's not just I do height and weight because I care. No, I need to calculate like antibiotics. Like,
Yep.
there's always like another reason as to why we're doing it. But like doing a calculation from a product is not that simple. They have to code that and have to make that accessible for a provider, potentially a patient. And then from an administrative end, like there's, okay, I want to see how many 10-year-olds are coming to us and how many 15-year-olds are coming in, what etiologies are coming to them, why they're coming to us. Like I want to run those quality scores too, so then I can do target market fit. And so it's sometimes hard also because I have to do a lot of explaining as to why I'm like, okay, someone comes in with chest pain, like some could be seen if it's costochondritis, but like, how are we going to rule out this is not an MI walking through the door? Like, who hits those risk scores? And why do I have a heart score adjacent to this? And why do I have pictures and videos to make sure we are very articulate of what that means, right? That's only because you work in healthcare. Like, it's very
Yep.
hard to articulate that without giving examples, and it's storytelling with, in the product space.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like every role that you've ever had has informed
Gotcha.
the way that you are able to really effectively and successfully build this product and deploy it to businesses that can benefit from it. That's incredible.
Yeah, I've had a privileged career, like, ups and downs no matter what. Like, I can look back and be
Yeah.
like, it's just been such a privilege to serve in healthcare. And like, I just can't wait till like the future holds. Like, I don't wanna wish time away, but like, I know I'm just so happy I took this path and I wouldn't have
Yeah.
changed it at all, ever, not one step.
Amazing. I love that so much. It's really great to hear something that I particularly have really been loving about diving into the world of health tech, meeting other people in the space and having conversations is it is much easier to feel truly optimistic and like juiced up about the good that's happening in healthcare
Totally,
when we're talking with people who are building for solutions and like saying like, hey, that we cannot do this anymore. We can't, just accept this as the status quo. So it's
totally.
so great to hear that you feel that way.
Oh, honestly, like, when I hear the negativity that comes, like, "This is gonna steal your job. This is gonna replace." uh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Like, I
100%.
I I doubt it. If you ask ChatGPT if I'm gonna lose my job, it says, "No, I'm gonna be nurse practitioners are more in demand the next 10 years." I'm like, "All right. Until that
Yeah.
answer changes, I feel secure."
Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, so, 2 questions. Number
Yeah, yeah.
1, what do you think or want the future to hold for you? Number
Ooh.
2, do you have any advice or suggestions or resources for clinicians who might be feeling like a change is in their future to explore?
Okay, first question. What does the future hold for Jasmine? What does Jasmine wanna do in life? I
What do
just
you wanna
wanna
be when you grow up?
Girl, I ask that question constantly to myself, but, I always want to lead a career that I have this creative outlet, that I get to think for myself and act on myself, and, like, always make sure I end the day, like, maybe not happy, but fulfilled. Like, I think that's realistic. I think sometimes happiness is unrealistic, but, like, contentness and fulfillment, I think is definitely possible. So I think for the future for me, just like growing the skills that I need to still grow as an executive, first time founder, like really gain that confidence in the ways I practice. Potentially raise capital has kind of been something I've been dabbling with, but we always dabble, in all those thoughts. So those are things that I'm going to be investing in myself to do and explore those options. And then advice for other people, especially clinicians that are interested in like pivoting out, just like number one, know your worth. You're just like so clinicians are just so incredible. And like even though in our environment right now we're really beat down, we're burnt out, we're like looking for options and maybe even feel a little lost because you don't know where to start, but you are so valuable to know your worth and make sure you're investing in yourself every day. Whether it's like, hey, I'm gonna start doing a TikTok every day, or hey, I'm gonna read a new book every day, or hey, I'm gonna put $5 away so I can start building a MSOPC or LLC, whatever you start to do. Invest in yourself yesterday, today, tomorrow, whenever you start, just start. Once you start, that momentum builds and you'll just notice the world around you will shift. And you'll be so happy when I look back a year from now, I'm like, oh my God, what a year. I want all clinicians to have that feeling.
I love the aspect of slowly building momentum and like taking little steps rather than expecting a huge avalanche to happen. I think that the beautiful thing is that like when you, just like you said, when you take those little steps and start to really modify your
Mhm.
surroundings, modify the people around you, modify the conversations that you're having towards what you truly enjoy and what you truly feel passionate about, you wake up one morning and you're like, oh my gosh, my life is completely different than it was 4 months ago, 7 months ago, 1 year ago, however long it was. So that's really, really great advice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you guys ever need mentors, I'm on LinkedIn, like holler, like I'm happy to be your cheerleader.
Yeah.
Like we need community and we need love in our space. So like my door is open for sure.
Yes, great segue. I will link your LinkedIn into the show notes so that the listeners know where to find you if they want to reach out, even just to say, hey, Jasmine, you're awesome. My LinkedIn will also be in the show notes, as well as my Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, follow along at any point, feel free to. Any last thoughts? Any questions for me? Any final words of wisdom to offer the audience before we sign off, Jasmine? It's been such a pleasure chatting with you today, and
No, but
I'm
thank you so
stoked
much.
to see, yeah. I'm so stoked to see how Clinova evolves and how your career continues to take this like beautifully windy path, and you're someone who clearly leads with their heart and like leads with a pure intention of service for others, in mind. And it shows in the way that you speak about your career journey and how you speak about, how you're solving problems for people and how you're finding solutions. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me. This is literally a pleasure. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, listeners, thanks for listening to another episode of Corporate Espionage. If you feel like you are a clinician who is pushing the boundaries of what it means to wear your clinical title, or you're doing some really cool things in health tech or innovation space, feel free to hit me up. We are always actively recruiting guests. A little housekeeping, we are adjusting the show release dates to every other week instead of every week because I am a one-man show. Make sure that you share this episode with someone who might be inspired by it and reach out to us if you need anything. And we are signing off. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks again, Jasmine.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, guys.
All right, ciao.